the sound and audio, it could be a little bit
It's
confusing this
preseason.
early.
It's
Yeah, it's
preseason.
preseason. We're in preseason form. Um, Welcome everybody. This is of course Wonky with Dustin Undisputed, um, the greatest, the one and only show for the HFFL, which is the Hunter Fantasy Football League, the greatest fantasy football league ever, I think, where we have a whole bunch of great personalities and a great topics to run through as we head into the season and look forward to the rookie draft upcoming this week on Tuesday, August 3rd, where the first round begins, and we'll be heading right into all the preseason content and then into the auction draft and the regular season. So there's a lot to look forward to. I think if you want to talk a little bit, Dustin, about some of the logo work that we are unveiling today, you can repeat that now.
Yeah, I already said it, but it did get lost to the void, so I'll just say it again. I think the great thing about the HFL is the personalities, and just how every franchise has such a long history at this point. I think our newest owner is already 4 years in, probably. It's
At
probably their
least,
fourth year for
yeah, yeah.
Yonkers, right? And then everyone else is 10, 12 years. So we have a long running history. And I think the personalities in HFL are what make it so great. And, with that is, I wanted a way to represent that, year to year. Because, team names might change. Obviously, the players change every year. But there is, a history behind every franchise and every team that I want to start building. And that will be like through written pieces about their history and stuff. But I thought another important thing to attach to each team is some sort of visual identity. So I'm not a visual artist or a design specialist or anything. So these logos are what they are. But I did spend some time this off season trying to come up with something, a theme for each team that we can hold from year to year and have it carry over and have it be a constant. And when you think of this team, you'll think of certain images, certain colors, certain obviously players, personalities. That part is done by each team. But yeah, so I was working on this. These are first drafts, I would say. They're not locked in. I'm really want to use this show to kind of unveil them, but also get some feedback, some response. And I'm open to work with whichever teams to change their logo if they have ideas or anything else that they want to add into their visual identity. So yeah, I'm really excited to show these off for the first time, and I guess we could just get started.
Yeah, thanks again, Dustin, for doing this. I think this is remarkable work, and it's going to be super exciting to have these logos for the future, for now, of course, and also the future, um, as our league continues to just get more and more complex and uh, adding these types of visual identities. I think is really awesome. It's just a lot of fun. Um, let's start with Mars. I think one of the bigger personalities in the league. That's of course the owner, John Lim. He used to have a co-owner, but no longer. He's back with his single ownership. Looking at some of the potential keepers, I think he's got a great number of stars in that keeper list, and then he has a couple of other guys that he can sprinkle in. So it's going to be interesting to see how he allocates the contracts. I do believe he's got already Mike Williams with the 1 year deal for 2021, Debo Samuel for 2 years, and then he's got, of course, CeeDee Lamb and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who he had obtained by trade last season. Are there any other names and any other comments you want to add for perhaps his logo for Mars?
Yeah, just going back to the logo. I think when they won their championship, might be 8, 9, 10 years ago or something like that. Very long ago. I think they won it as the Mars ACLians, and they have had other team themes such as the trading company and stuff. But it's always special to win a championship with a certain theme and team. And I think Mars is like a really fun one for our league, because everyone else is on Earth. mostly packed in, the east coast of the USA,
Right.
and then we have a team located on Mars. I think that's a lot of fun, and um, yeah, it was like easy to come up with a theme that worked for that because it's unlike a lot of the other logos we'll be seeing. It's kind of an upside down spaceship, right?
Oh,
Circular logos are really common, and that they're common for a reason because they work.
right.
But I really like this one because it was unique in its shape. Upside down spaceship. The color scheme is like really sharp, very unique. It's purple and green, and it really pops together. So I thought it really worked well for the personality that this team is trying to convey, and I think it came out like a lot better than I thought it would.
Yeah, totally. I I think one of the stories heading into this season for Mars is the fact that they do have only um, a couple of pieces in the draft, although that has been bolstered a little bit by a recent trade, which I guess we can cover now. Where I traded the 1-5 and the 2-7 picks in the 2021 draft to Mars for the 103. So yeah, he has a little bit of draft capital coming up this week. Of course, the keeper deadline is in a little bit, so all of these names here are not final. They can move and probably will move, knowing Mars. But it's going to be interesting to see, what John does in the future.
Hmm. Since I don't really have as much of like for you, I guess you need to kind of conceal a little bit of like your true thoughts on every player because you're still
Oh,
in the
sure. Yeah,
market.
yeah, sure.
But for me, I'm just gonna probably just go a guy I really like, a guy I'm probably a little bit lower on, and then maybe like someone I think is like kind of underlooked on each team. Um, so yeah, I think on this team, I think Jalen Hurts. It's it was kind of up and down for him. He came out really hot last year, and then it looked like he struggled a little bit down the stretch. But the team was pretty banged up and injured, and it was his rookie year.
Right.
But I think the upside on that as a keeper is super super high. Um, a running quarterback, as you well know, could be so valuable in our league. So at the lowest price possible, that's probably the piece I would like the most on this team. In terms of something, I mean, Devo Samuels and Mike Williams, I think the fact, I mean, they're not terrible keepers. I just don't think that having 3 years tied up in them is really such a great idea. It was his rookie year. So, like, overall, it does make me feel like, it's not bad, but for a team that, finished in last place, you would have hoped to come away with some way more interesting pieces, I think, than what this team ended up with. So, it is a little bit disappointing in that regard, I think.
Yeah, definitely. There are some interesting names, I think, also other than the ones that I've mentioned. Henry Ruggs III is an interesting one, as well as Damian Harris. There's also Chase Edmonds, and presumably you could even go someone like Robert Tunyon or even Derek Carr, but likely it's going to be some of these obvious names, and then adding on a couple of others on top of that. But we'll see. We'll see exactly what Mars does, and that's of course a drink for everyone who's keeping track of how many times I say
We'll
we'll
see.
see. um, let's move on to Yonkers. Yonkers, man, what a nice logo. So also for everyone who's watching, I have not seen these logos, and man, the honky tonkers, I don't even know what that means. Could you explain a little bit, Dustin, about what's going on in this one?
I don't even know what a honky tonker is, and I'm not actually. I mean, I did ask the owner Jay to explain what that was, and he didn't really seem to know either. But he just said if he found it funny, and then I found an image when I looked up honky tonkers of this like weird looking like creature that has that horn and then that weird like piano thing. So it is something musical, I think.
Ah, okay.
So I don't know. So he was like, whatever, that looks funny. So like, let's just go with it. So the color scheme is his. He those are the colors that he envisioned. His team having. And I just kind of expanded out on it. It is a circular theme, but it's got like the Yonkers text is a little bit in that like. So I think what a honky tonkers actually is some musical like saloon thing in the Wild West or down south or something. I'm just like throwing stuff out there and hoping
Okay.
one of them is correct.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway, yeah, there's some of that like those influences in it, and it goes really well with the color scheme. I think the red and rustic yellow
It
and black. It
does.
goes well with the font. So I actually really liked how the color and the ideas of the team really worked out. They are one of our newer franchises, so it's not like they have a long history, but they have been the Honky Tonkers, I believe, since they came in, right?
Yes.
Right. So now I guess we don't really actually know what the Honky Tonkers are, but you can imagine it's like that like weird creature with a horn and a piano like frill or something.
Yeah,
So
it feels very musical, and I feel like it matches Jay. Like, I don't know why, but to me, when I see this, it feels like some type of southern tune that I'm hearing.
yeah, yeah,
And Jay, of course, is from Tennessee, from Nashville, I believe, but it matches his personality, I think, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's
yeah.
great, and chat seems to agree. Let's move to some of his keepers now, where I think the big headliner for him is Saquon Barkley for 40 this year, and then he's got under contract James Conner as well as Darius Slayton. So maybe two names that he might not have wanted as keepers for this year, but who knows? Maybe not. And then a couple of other random names. I think someone like Ryan Tannehill will probably get a contract. Maybe even someone like I don't know Jamal Williams, maybe. Another Lion, maybe in Quinta Cephas, as I saw you posted a picture today at the Discord with a one-handed catch. And then, of course, how did I miss this? It's because he's a tight end. Darren Waller, I think, is probably going to be a name that gets extended to the next season. With some of the picks, he's picking sixth in the first round, followed by the 2-2, 2-9, and then the second pick in all of the subsequent rounds. And I forget to mention this for Mars, but Mars, of course, has 3 extra raise penalties because of finishing last in the 2020 season. Yonkers has 2 extra raise penalties that they need to allocate for this year. So, what are your thoughts on who stands out to you? Your usual spiel for this
Yeah.
episode.
I mean, I really think the way Ryan Tannehill's offseason is going, I feel like he's kind of always overlooked. He's like probably not seen as like an elite quarterback,
Right.
but I really think he basically was last year, and he's getting a really sick weapon to play with in Julio Jones, right?
Right.
So I think that the offseason really worked out really well for his prospects of keeping Tannehill. Um, I am probably a little bit not happy to be keeping either James Conner or Slayton, just based on how the off seasons really went. Conner ended up on Arizona, I think,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think there will be a competition probably, but he doesn't look like he's going to be the for sure bell cow there. And then for Slayton, the Giants kind of influx and took signed Galladay, and they took some wide receiver in the first round. So that's not super great for his prospects either. But yeah, like continuing on, I do think the tight end market is really interesting in this league. Because basically, because of who was kept and everything, basically one guy got like all the money, and then the drop off in salary is as steep as we've seen it for any position. So when you're giving out a contract to a guy that's not the Kelsey, or not a terrible waiver wire tight end that you're picking up every week, it's really interesting. I mean, I don't know what a Waller would go for on open market, but I do think it's probably worth keeping because just
Definitely.
the tight end market is just so gross to play with. So
What do you think about
yeah,
Mark Andrews?
Mark Andrews. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
they're both kind of like. It's funny that this team has like 2 guys that I consider kind of mid range. I mean, mid range tight ends, as in like they're not the top tier of tight ends,
Right.
but they're also way, 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 way better than like the guys you're picking up and streaming every week.
Yes.
So what is that worth on the open market? It's really hard to tell. It's really hard to tell. So there is a chance that either Waller or Andrews could go for less than what it would cost to keep them, but there's also a chance that they go for way more, and then you're left starting a terrible tight end every week. So, if I were in this place, I would pick one of them and probably keep one of them, and then we'll see if anyone wants to trade for one or something. But the tight end market is definitely one of the more interesting things I think going into this offseason.
Yeah, that's definitely the case, I think, as well. And I think what you say makes sense. And we'll see again what Jay will pick and choose
I'm
for.
pretty sure you're going to finish off each of these teams with a we'll see. There
I
will be nothing definitive enough for you to be like,
look.
this team is fucked.
It's a Saturday night. I know there's a couple viewers, and if you got alcohol around, it's a good way to just finish it
Just
off.
sips. Shots
Just
will get you
yeah,
destroyed.
yeah.
So we're doing sips. We're doing
Just
sips.
sip each time. It's like a good, moving on type of
Yeah,
turn the
yeah.
next page type of thing. As we
Yep.
do that here to go to New England for the New England Kingfishers, and I think this.
Nice segue.
Oh yeah, of course. This logo is one that's familiar with everyone on the Discord because I use it as my profile picture, and it was part of the process that I was thinking about rebranding entering the 2019 season, which of course was the championship year for New England. And I spent a long time in the offseason thinking about what to rename the team. Long time it has been called the Sutang Clan, I believe, and then switching to the Kingfishers, it kind of dawned upon me one day, and finding this logo is great. But I think you've really taken it to the next level here with this creation.
Yeah, like I said for Mars, there's always something special about winning a championship with whatever identity you've had that year, and then I think it really does stick with you because people really do remember the teams that win the championships. I mean, you might have had a bunch of other teams, but the Kingfisher year is always going to be special for that reason. And yeah, your logo was really fun to make. I think it's one of the ones that I think could like pretty much pass as a professional sports team logo just because of how simple the kind of bird motif is with a nice detail of the crown for the Kingfishers. It's also the only logo with no black lines in it or thick outline lines in it, and I kept that also in mind when I chose the font because I chose like a stroke font, so it doesn't have any edges. So I think it really gives it a nice artistic look. It's very simple, very clean, and honestly very, very pretty to look at.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. So thanks again for doing this, Dustin. I really like it. I'm happy with it, and there's really no edits that I think need to be made. I think you've just
That's great.
made it something fantastic. So yeah, I think the face of this franchise for a while now has been Lamar Jackson, and he returns in 2021 with a contract, and then a couple of new faces with AJ Brown under contract, and then DJ Chark coming back. He was part of that 2019 year, but then he didn't stay for the finish. There's a lot of names here. I think rip Cam Akers first. I do want to say that. I think that Achilles injury is pretty concerning for his career, and I wish him the best in his recovery. But besides that, I think there are other names on this roster that have potential to be kept. I think a lot of people will look at J.K. Dobbins as a potential keeper, and then alongside him are a whole bunch of these quote-unquote sexy wide receivers. You can just look at it. There's a lot. Judy, Pittman, Chenault, Davis, maybe even Mooney. What do you think, Dustin, in terms of someone who has been maybe overlooked as well as underlooked out of these names?
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, obviously AJ Brown's the probably most established star, but the piece that I really like the most on this team is J.K. Dobbins in terms of potential. I think that Ravens offense just has so much potential. I don't think we saw the best of it last year, but I think there were a lot of factors that went into that I think they will correct and come back this year. And if he can get a big enough part of the touches that will be in that backfield, I think the price that he's at, the talent type that he is, I just think that's the piece I would clutch the most tightly if I were in your place. Obviously, a piece that I'm not as in love with is DJ Shark. It's not that I don't like the talent. It's just that the team is so in flux. Nobody really knows how that offense is going to shake out, like just all around. And he's certainly not expensive going into next year, but I don't think he's super cheap, and I don't think the offseason went super well for him. But I do know you're a big fan of his talent, so maybe just betting on that will turn out vindicate you and prove you right. A piece that I think is a little overlooked is actually a guy on the same team, Chenault. I think it'll be really interesting to see if whether you keep him or you trade him, or if he does hit auction market, what he goes for, because he has been getting a little bit of buzz. And like I said, new quarterback, new coach, you really have no idea how that offense is about to shake out. You have no idea how they're gonna, allocate, targets and everything. So I think Chenault, whether he hits auction or whether you or someone else keeps him, it's a really interesting piece that I would love to see how it turns out.
Yeah, I think it's funny. You could almost argue Chenault is the one who is valued, and Shark is underlooked in that equation, just because of the buzz that's surrounding Chenault.
Right. I'm just saying, yeah. So it could definitely go either way. But just by the fact that Chenault is cheaper is why I think he's a little underlooked, and Shark is a little bit more expensive, which is why I think he's a little bit maybe overhyped. But it could definitely turn out anyway. So for me, it's just playing the odds, playing the cheaper asset more than me thinking that one guy is inherently better suited to be a lead receiver or anything like that.
Right. Yeah, and I do have to be honest. It's painful to choose only a couple here to keep. I do like a lot of these players, and if you can't tell already, I like Shark, but I also like Chenault a lot too, because I, of course, drafted.
Yeah, you were very high on him all year.
Yeah, yep. So there's definitely emotions tied to both of those players, and again, we'll see what I do. If I,
it's your own team. What do you mean we'll see? You know what you're gonna do. You could say we'll see for 9 teams, but for your team, you'll see. You know what's going on.
Yeah, maybe. The only other thing is in the rookie draft, I have the third pick, and I think I made that trade right. It's just to symmetrize that. 1-3-2-3-3-3. It's all.
Just a question. You don't have to answer, but were you targeting someone, or did you just see an opportunity in terms of a trade opportunity, and you thought it was that like the price is about right? So yeah, do you have someone in mind when you were moving up to 1-3, or was it just value?
Yeah, it's a bit of both. I think it's a little bit more of the former. So I do think I have a guy in mind that I would love
Nice.
to draft on the team. Kind of like the how the 49ers did their move, something.
Yeah,
something
it's similar, very similar. Yeah,
just
people moved up way early before the draft, and people were like, "Do you have someone in mind?" And it turns out they did, and I imagine you have a very similar idea in mind, and it'll be really interesting to see on draft day what you were thinking when you moved up.
Yeah, I just pray that this player actually is on the board. But we'll see. I mean, I had a thought of what would happen for the first 2 picks, but I could be proven wrong. I don't think it's as set as the real NFL draft. I think it was very clear what was going to happen in real life, but in fantasy here, it's difficult, different. I'm pretty sure what the 101 will be, but the 102 really concerns me. So we'll see what happens. Oh, there it is again. I said it twice. Let's go to the Flushing team. Man, this one's an interesting logo. Do you want to talk about it? This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I after making about 9 or 10 logos, like I got so sick of circles. So I really do appreciate all the non-circular logos because the circle is ubiquitous for a reason. It is easy. It looks good. It's easy to make stuff around it. So when I can come up with something else that makes somewhat sense, I'm pretty happy with it. This is pretty much based on the NYPD
Right.
badge, almost exactly. I actually took the elements from the official NYPD site, and then I moved it around so it says Fantasy Football Team of Flushing instead
That's
of
awesome.
Police Department of New York. Um, but yeah, I mean it's pretty simple. I think a lot of what we think of Flushing and its owner is Andrew Chu, Officer Chu. His emotes are officer related, and uh, he is a. We are proud to have him, in our league and protecting our streets at the same time. It's not just once, but I think a couple of times he's rookie drafted or drafted while like on duty, like just in the middle of the street, like using Starbucks Wi-Fi or something.
Oh
So
my God.
you know, and then his schedule is always what we're working around. So I think we all have an appreciation for that aspect of his job and how it works around our fantasy league. So, yeah, I mean, he didn't really have any strong feelings, but he always is proud to represent, um, his job and stuff. So this was a pretty easy one to make.
I love how it matches his identity and what he brings right outside of the league. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing that it's incorporated into the league, and
hmm
yeah, it's amazing.
Also, this is funny, but the helmet used inside the logo is actually the Browns logo.
Oh,
Which I mean, it's not an insult, but I do think this team is kind of like the Browns of the HFFL in a lovable kind of loser way. They've definitely had a lot more tough luck than good times. But they're important to the league for being that kind of thing. And when they get good, you know that everyone's gonna root for them a lot, just like how the Browns making their run last year, people seemed pretty happy for him. And I do think if there is an NFL franchise that they're kindred spirits with, it is the Browns. So I actually really like that touch that I got to use that logo within this logo.
yeah. Yeah, and I think actually out of the four logos we've seen already, this one feels the most fantasy football-y, right? Like the other
hmm
ones are, as you said, like maybe it could be in a different league or,
Yep,
yeah, I don't know, some
yep,
arena
yep. This
football league
one,
or something. This one is a fantasy football league type of
it
logo.
says fantasy football. It is
Yeah,
very to the point.
yeah,
It's got that helmet is also kind of a generic fantasy football ish type
yeah,
of
it
logo too.
is. Yeah,
So it works on that aspect too. Like it's clearly representing NYPD, but also this is made for fantasy football. So there's no getting around that.
yeah, definitely. Let's look at a little bit of the contract situation for Flushing. They have Kyler and Deshaun Watson. It's a little awkward with what's going on with Deshaun Watson. So
Yes.
uh, we don't know what's going to happen. I don't think Andrew True has really talked much about it, but it's got to be one of the most disappointing types of situations for him. And yeah, it sucks for Flushing, honestly, for
Yeah.
that to be happening to one of his stars and one of his key foundational players, honestly.
hmm
So it sucks. He has Terry McLaurin as a superstar in the wide receiver core for him, and then it's hard. I mean, there's not too many other names that really stand out. Potentially, you could think about giving a contract to I don't know, Chris Carson, maybe. Um, Maybe not too much value there. Maybe Gus Edwards. I don't know. Do you see any other names that stand out? I will note that Cortland Sutton was on the last year of his old keeper contract, meaning he can only be franchise tagged, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, any other names that you see?
Yeah. I mean, it's funny that I talked about the Browns, but this is just bad luck, right? Deshaun Watson getting
Yeah,
stuck with what he got stuck with is totally out of the control of a fantasy owner. and now he's in this really tough spot of what to do with him. It doesn't look like the league is going to come to a swift resolution on that. So,
Yeah.
this is a team that's going to suffer for either, holding it or having to make a decision on it. Either way, it's just a terrible situation to be in. Uh, yeah, I mean, the piece that I like the most on this team is Terry McLaurin. I think he's a bona fide star, and he's done it with some bad quarterbacks. And we'll see what happens when we get some good quarterbacks, or better quarterbacks at least, with him. And I think he's like this era's DeAndre Hopkins, which is weird because DeAndre Hopkins is still around. But DeAndre Hopkins was really good for a pretty long time with pretty much the worst quarterbacks you could put
Mm.
next to him. And then, he hit a slightly different, like, higher level with, a slightly better, or not a slightly better, a significantly better quarterback. So, I think we'll see that kind of career arc with Terry McLaurin. I think he takes a step forward this year, and then if Washington football team ever gets a really stud quarterback, to throw to Terry McLaurin, I think, that could be the number one receiver in the NFL in like 3 or 4 years, So that's a piece that I think is foundational. I think it's really good for this franchise. Obviously, the Deshaun Watson one is probably the one that is the most uncomfortable to deal with because you just don't know what do you do with him. Like, he's kind of like maybe he plays this year, maybe he doesn't. You're kind of rooting for something weird either way, and cutting him doesn't seem very good for fantasy football reasons anyway, right? So
Right. Right.
in a really tough spot. I will say the guy I think maybe you're or other people might overlook a little bit is Chris Carson. I do think he has value at least on a 1 year deal.
Sure.
He is a little bit, I think, underrated by people. He isn't ever going to be a superstar running back, but they don't really have anyone better than him. I know they have other names there, but I think Chris Carson's actually shown stuff while the other guys, it's just drafted high or used to be interesting or something. So I think Chris Carson for 1 year I would definitely do, and I think maybe some people would overlook that, but I think it's definitely worth it.
So what would you do in terms of the contract years? Would you give Terry a massive contract here? Would you think about trading for keepers? What do you think the
Yeah,
strategy is?
honestly, like it sucks to like kind of think long term in a league where pretty much every team is thinking, okay, I can win it this year. And I'm not saying that Flushing can't win it this year,
Mm-hmm.
but with the situation of Deshaun Watson, I might just kind of get Terry McLaurin onto as many long cheap years as I can, and then next year when the Watson thing is a little bit either for good or for bad, it's a little bit more settled, and then you go for you kind of go for it more next year. I don't want to ever say like any team should, because I've seen teams with terrible keepers make it to the Hunter Bowl and stuff. So I wouldn't like outright play it that way,
Sure.
but kind of with an eye on it, maybe since don't have a ton of good keepers anyway. Giving a guy that I really like, Terry McLaurin, many years wouldn't be the worst thing.
Right.
But I mean, before that, I'm in trade talks trying to see what people are not valuing that highly that I might value, and a lot of times you'll be able to get a deal done for something cheap that you like that someone else might not like. So that would be my first choice. But I'm saying if nothing comes to fruition, it's not the worst idea I think to give Terry McLaurin a nice long deal and get him on a really controllable deal, and then you'll probably peak in terms of keeper value sometime in the next couple of years. That would be probably the most realistic way of looking at it.
Yeah, it's tough to trade for keepers when there aren't too many tradable assets in the offseason other than
Mm-hmm.
keepers, right? So
Yeah.
if this team was to go and grab maybe two or three actual legitimate keepers, they're going to have to give up either Kyler or Terry, and that depends on what Flushing wants to do with those key players. But
Mm-hmm.
it does seem like to me it's better to try out this longer year contract system and see if that's going to actually help you in the long run. I think it's an interesting test case.
Yep, for sure.
let's move to LIC. Whoa, what is that? Oh, that's pretty cool. Um, obviously, what stands out is the monkey, which is the Grundle monkeys that are associated with LIC. But that's really cool how the letters are in this logo. Do you want to talk about it, Dustin?
Yeah, LIC was actually one of the hardest ones to make, and probably the one that I want to improve more. Um, the LIC kind of fitting into, the LI and the C, like fitting in together is kind of cool, but like it was really hard to do something with the monkey in a way that was like more dynamic, because I think it is just kind of like sitting there. I did try to make it like he's throwing a football, and
Mm.
I think the LIC by itself, it it works pretty well, but like I just don't know if it has. I mean, I think square logos are just really hard to pull off, and I just like kind of went back and forth on like trying to figure out what I could do, because with LIC you can't do anything other than a square logo, and square logos are hard to pull off. So I
I
don't know. It was tough. This one was like the one I probably spent the most time on, and the one that I'm probably most willing to like change up.
Yeah, I think this logo is actually pretty good. My only comment on it is perhaps thinking about a different color. Because if
Right,
the
right.
L and the I maybe stood out as more different colors and there was better contrast in some way,
Mm-hmm.
and
Right.
maybe not with
Thinking about,
black,
yeah,
but this is,
tricolor.
yeah,
Tricolor would actually, I think, work really well
yeah,
for this
exactly,
team. But
exactly.
early on in the process, I asked him for colors, and he just gave me two. So
Ah, I
yeah,
see.
it's definitely something I think could work really well with tricolors, because there are three elements, and the monkey could be
Right.
something a little bit more interesting than black. But yeah, I mean, there's some elements of it that I really do like. I do like how the LIC does like kind of fit
I
together.
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the monkey is a cute logo.
Yeah, it
It's
is.
unfortunately not as like, it doesn't look as much like a real logo like the Kingfishers does. It does look like clip art, which it is clip art. But yeah, I mean, there's some elements of it that I really did like too, though.
Yeah, no, yeah. Warren, if you're listening, just pick a third color and I think you're good. Uh, that's my opinion at least. But you can of course judge it and figure out, and of course talk with Dustin afterwards. Um, LIC, they have Justin Jefferson, who is one of the superstars in the league, and I think he doesn't have a contract, but he will obviously get one, and
Hmm.
obviously get one for probably a number of years. Um, he's got Aaron Jones under contract as well as Nick Chubb, so that's a really good pair of running backs for this year, and I think the the talk of the Discord of this offseason is a lot centered around this QB. Tua Tagovailoa. Uh, we'll actually see if Warren gives a contract to Tua. He doesn't know. We don't know. We'll find out at the end of this month, I'm sure. And I think also do not overlook one of the biggest assets that LIC has is the 2-1 pick. That's the 11th pick with a $2 cost, which I think more often than not becomes a really good keeper. So I think LIC is set for a couple of years, honestly, but that's my opinion. We'll see exactly if they are able to muster a great keeper core for this year, and I think they will with starting from that duo of running backs that they have. Your thoughts on some of these keepers, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Justin Jefferson really impressed last year, and that would be my pick for the asset I like most on this team, just because running backs are great values for when they're good, but they drop off so quickly. Situations change so quickly. Their team drafts another running back. Their team offensive line starts sucking. Like a lot of things can change. But a wide receiver that was $2 last year, you're going to be able to keep that for a very very long time, just because I don't see anything you know changing, like in that he was like a fluke or anything. So Justin Jefferson has to be the piece I think I would clutch the tightest, and for good reason. Um, a piece, I mean, like you said, Tua has been the talk of our Discord for a bit. I am really interested to see, you know, for me, I don't know if I would even give him a deal. but I imagine that he will give him a 1 year deal, trying to see if he could prove, that he has that kind of ceiling. Um, Personally, I have kind of been on the side that he doesn't have that kind of ceiling, but the argument is though, if he does have that kind of ceiling, that's a really really nice asset. A quarterback is also like a wide receiver in that their value is much less affected by injury and
Right.
running backs are a lot more shaky from year to year.
Right.
And on that note, he does have two really good running backs on pretty much short term deals because I think they did not um, get transition. So I mean, that's the only deal that he's allowed to give them, and then he'll be able to franchise tag the better of them.
True.
Um, so I mean, yeah, he's in a really good position, I think. Yeah, I guess the guy that I'm not super high on is Tua, but I think it's not a surprise to a lot of people. Because I think it's not really a you know a sentiment that isn't shared by a lot of people. But he's definitely someone that could um impress, and then maybe we'll just be laughing at how wrong we were again.
Absolutely. You never know, right? So, if Warren really believes in Tua, then I don't see why not in giving that contract. But either way, it's going to be a little bit of a mind game. Maybe he goes back into the auction, sort of like what I did with Lamar back in 2019, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
we never
Mm-hmm.
know. So we'll see. Uh, and I like how we have that conversation with Tua and Justin Jefferson, actually, just to highlight again how valuable that second round pick is sometimes. That $2 price tag is so good if you hit on a keeper. It's going to be someone you can lean on for many, many years, whereas you really need a guarantee in that first round to get that value, preferably in the first year, but if they don't show anything, they might not even get a contract into the second. So
Yeah,
it's
no, it's
tough.
one of my favorite spots to pick into, which is why I was so critical of Mars last year, where they did give away the rights to their second overall pick or second round pick when it was very very clear that they would finish with a bottom
Yep.
or top three pick of the second round at
Yep.
worst. By the time he traded it, it wasn't like early in the season where he had hopes of something better. He just threw it away for. I mean, maybe I'm a little more harsh on Mike Williams than others will be, but I don't think that's something that's even close to worth the value that you can get. At 2-1, 2-2, 2-3. We've seen guys like Justin Jefferson, Antonio Gibson. Baker Mayfield in his rookie year was really instrumental to the championship season. There's a lot of examples of those early second round picks being arguably more valuable than a lot of the picks in the first round, just
Yeah.
because of that price point. You can just speculate on a guy with much less investment. I just, hated that trade at that time, and I don't think a team that was clearly, not contending that year should have made a deal like that. But, I can only say that so many times before it gets too old.
Exactly. We say it every episode almost, and that's why John of Mars is not listening to any of these shows. um, but yeah, I mean the list goes on, right? In the second round, like Kamara, I'm sure was in there.
Yep,
Ayuk is
yep.
another one from last
Hmm.
year.
Yep.
It goes on and on. But anyways, let's move on to Harlem. And this one's a really simple one from
Hmm.
Harlem, and I really like the initials of the co-owners there. Um,
Yeah, it has really good meaning behind it actually. I believe Mike Diaz and Daniel Kimmelsdorf met at 4-H, or they, in their childhood, they had a lot of memories at 4-H, which is like that youth organization, right?
I'm not entirely. Yeah,
And
I'm not sure. Yeah,
yeah, it's basically I didn't go to it, so I'm not too familiar. So maybe someone could explain exactly how it works. But it is pretty much like youth mentoring and youth development and stuff.
Mm.
And that is their logo, the 4-leaf clover. And it's a
Mm.
really simple logo, just a 4-leaf clover. But it's very clean and it works, and it has a lot of meaning to them. So this is, I think, maybe the only logo that I personally didn't have a hand in making. He actually took initiative to make it himself, and I
Wow.
actually really like it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like the font. I like how clean it is.
Yeah,
It's so
I
simple.
actually really like so how Harlem is just broken up. Like a lot of the times, it looks kind of like dumb, but like here, it has like strength to it. Like I when I saw it, I was like, oh, that's damn that like that looks like it was supposed to be meant like to broken up like that, and I was like, oh, that actually works pretty well.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
but
yeah.
yeah, I mean, I really like that it has a lot of meaning to their partnership, and um, it is one of the I guess now it's the probably the biggest partnership
Yes,
franchise, right? So
yes,
what better way than to have both owners represented on the logo?
definitely. Um, yeah, let's talk a little bit about their keepers. I personally think that this team is probably set up to be the championship favorite. Just really, really early. Obviously, this we're not even in August, but if you take a look at what they have DK Metcalf under contract for 2 more years, Cooper Cup 1 year deal, and then they have a number of other potential keepers. I think the loss of Cam Akers for me has turned into the gain of Harlem, where Daryl Henderson is now a potential keeper at $14. They've got Mike Davis, who somehow survived the offseason as the lead running back for Atlanta. And you can even think about giving a contract to people like A.J. Dillon, Chase Claypool, as well as T. Higgins, who has been traded. I think that was something that was announced earlier in the show today, where
Hmm.
they've received, they meaning Harlem, has received Dak Prescott and David Montgomery, 4 T. Higgins, 4 Fab, and a 2022 second round pick. Provided if Harlem's pick is 201 or 202 in 2022, Virginia will return to Harlem any 2022 second round pick or 3 Fab at Virginia's option. Pretty complicated at the end, but um, put simply, I think they have added more running backs to potential keepers, as well as someone that they could keep from the QB position as well. I think Dak Prescott is in the mid 20s, and we'll take a look at that later when we look at Virginia's roster. But yeah, what do you think about Harlem and their keepers and someone who stands out and maybe someone who you wouldn't be as willing to give a contract to?
Um, yeah, I mean DK Metcalf is obviously you know a monster, and they have him under control for 2 more years at a pretty reasonable price. But factoring in what their keepers would be after the trade, I actually think they are worse off than they were before.
Oh,
I'm gonna double down on my David Montgomery hate. I know it, did not age well down the stretch last year, but a lot of his work came against teams that had given up in the last few games of the season. So I don't think that was like, a sign of like, oh, like a real talent that's gonna hold that spot for a while. Um, Other guys that were in Chicago before had similar, strong endings to the season, which fooled, um, Oakland into giving Jeremy Langford multiple years, uh, Jordan Howard multiple years. Like, I feel like it's more along that line than like, oh, like I feel happy about giving a keeper contract to that guy. Also, Dak Prescott obviously was really good last year when he was healthy, but I think we might be like overlooking the impact an injury can have on a quarterback. Derek Carr, not the same guy after he got hurt. Carson Wentz, not the same guy after he got hurt. And, just to assume that Dak Prescott comes back and doesn't miss a beat, if it's super cheap, if I'm giving him a deal for, $20, I'm really happy with that. But I believe he is making
he's
enough.
25, so he'll be
Right. 30
probably
something,
30
right?
something. Yeah, maybe 40.
Right. I
Yeah.
mean, at that point, I think you're taking a big risk on him just being the same guy that he was last year. And, I hope he is because, he was doing really, really well before he got hurt. But I think we do have to come to the reality that, injuries do impact quarterbacks, even if they're not necessarily running quarterbacks. Carr and I think Wentz, those team owners will say that those guys were not the same after injuries, and their injuries, completely derailed what everyone thought. Both those guys are having MVP seasons, right? So I mean, I just don't think it's and at the price point that Dak is, I think I wouldn't feel like super happy about giving him a keeper contract. So, I do think they did win out a lot with Darrell Henderson, being there while Cam Akers got hurt. Mike Davis got brought in seems to be the lead of the Falcons running back group. But yeah, I don't really love the trade for Harlem, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this is going to be one of those rare moments where we disagree. I think I like it a lot for Harlem. I might be biased, but I like Dak a lot. I don't think the injury will affect him too much. I hear what you're saying, though, about injuries changing players, but I'm more worried about the new injury that he's got more than the old one.
I mean, so that's part of it, though. Derek Carr had a back injury,
right.
And then he had a bunch of other injuries after that kind of sapped his
sure
his development curve and his ability.
Yeah.
So I think that arm injury could be related to your body just isn't 100% like coming off an injury like that. You overcompensate by torquing your shoulder more, and those things I think kind of build up. So I like that injury I think is not a glaring sign, but I would be pretty concerned. I wouldn't think that, okay, like I'm just gonna assume he's like 100%, and just finish off with that. I would be very very wary. Is my point. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I think it's hard to assume that he'll have the same production as what he was projected to be last year. I think that's very unreasonable. I think Dak is great. He's a great quarterback, but it's going to be hard to put him as like QB1, QB2.
He was throwing like 600 yards. Like
yeah, there's no way that's
game.
happening. And so if they're expecting that, that's not going to be what Dak will be. I think he'll just be a very solid QB, probably a top 10 QB. In my opinion. And then David Montgomery is the other portion of this trade. And I think Montgomery, I think Montgomery's going to be good this year. I think he's going to lead the carries for the Bears. I think the Bears are going to have a good running game, and that may have to do with a certain quarterback that's coming in potentially later in the season. Maybe, we'll see. But I think they're going to have a much stronger offense, and that'll help Montgomery. Yes, he's not the most electric of players, but he's going to get the opportunities, and it's going to be good for Harlem, especially if you consider that David Montgomery doesn't need to do what he did in the last 6 weeks of the 2020 season to really have benefited Harlem here. I think with Darrell Henderson, with Mike Davis as potential keepers, it's going to be his RB2, maybe even RB3 if Mike Davis is really good. So I personally am a fan, and the other part of this team that we do need to talk about is the 101 that they're going to be picking early, obviously on Tuesday, and so that will likely be a running back, and that might even push Montgomery to be the RB3 of this team. That could be, I think, insane compared to the running backs across the league. So yeah, I think it's clear what the direction of this team is trying to do, and in the preseason, I really like that, seeing those type of strategies this early. Let's go to Oakland. They have the poop emoji in their logo. They're okay with this.
It's a very cute poop. He actually asked for the poop emoji.
Oh man, that's awesome. Oh man.
I think it really shows the personality running Oakland. He is the one who asked for the Pujo emoji in the first place, and
right.
It was used to great effect last year.
Right.
And it's a cute poop.
It
right?
is cute. It is cute. Yeah.
The color scheme. He did ask for a more black and red one, but due to conflict with another team, I actually pivoted to kind of like a Grizzlies like black, green, and red type of color scheme. It is kind of simple, and it kind of feels like a coffee
Yeah,
logo for some
yeah,
reason. I don't
yeah,
know
yeah.
why.
It does actually. Yeah,
Which is weird because they're also poo is like associated with coffee, I
yeah.
guess, because it gives yeah.
Man, that rodent that eats it. The copy luwak or whatever I think it's called. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. Um, but I mean, I like the colors a lot. I think it pops a lot. Um, the clean white lines like of the poop blending into like the inner circle, I think is like really really
It
clean too.
is. Yeah.
Um, I would maybe thin out the outlines on Oakland and fantasy football a little bit, maybe a couple pixels. Now that I look at it, but I think this is a really fun logo. This is like one that doesn't take itself too seriously. It's just a poop with eyes, and it's Oakland fantasy football. They embrace that kind of I think they're the most fun fan base, fun franchise. They're not taking themselves too seriously, even
Right.
though coming off a really good season, playoff season. I thought he would pivot to something a little bit more puff your chest out and
Yeah.
be like,
Official looking. Yeah,
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 yeah, like now I'm serious now. Like, I was fooling around back then, but that they seem to really embrace this type of identity, and I think it makes the league really fun that someone is like the first guy to poke fun at himself more than anyone else.
yeah.
It's definitely a unique um personality in our league, and I think this logo does a really good job of showing it.
Yeah, he really leans into it. And again, this one I feel like is a fantasy football logo.
Hmm.
Just like Flushing, I think it's another one that
Hmm.
emanates that, embodies that, and captures all of the fun that goes along with that. Um, yeah, so if you haven't noticed, we're going in the reverse order of the finishes from last year. So this is, of course, the first playoff team that we'll be talking about from 2020. They
Hmm.
finished fourth, and they have a couple of contracts already for 2021. So Kenyon Drake, which was the story of a couple um, matchups, some in the favor of Duho, some not. But in any case, he's under contract again for 2021. And then DJ Moore, Allen Robinson, as well as TJ Hawkinson, which I believe he got through a poach. Looking at the
He did.
numbers,
He
yeah,
did.
that doesn't make sense. So I think that's what is the case. And then I think a returning player almost certainly will be Josh Allen. Um, Priced at 21 right now. We'll see how many years he gets. And then potentially you're looking at maybe Austin Eckler. Jonathan Taylor will definitely be back as one of the leading superstar running backs on this team. And then there's a bunch of other maybe names, maybe Hollywood, probably not. Oh, Will Fuller could potentially be returned. What do you think about these guys here, Justin?
Yeah, I mean, he's got, obviously, as you can see, already a lot of years on the board,
Mm-hmm.
for them. I imagine one or two of those guys could get cut, but
Mm.
that is already a pretty good commitment. Uh, like you said, Jonathan Taylor, Eckler, Josh Allen, those guys seem like they'll probably get a look in. Um, I did, I did talk to the owner, and I saw kind of what ideas he was throwing around. This was pretty early in the off season,
Mm-hmm.
and this off season does remind me of New England's off season, your off season last year,
Oh.
because what he was like, I'm sure he still has some trades that he was trying to work on, because that's what he contacted me for.
Mm-hmm.
But what his projected keepers or plan kind of was, it tied up a lot of money going into the auction draft, and
Oh.
all those guys I thought were pretty worth it. I won't say like exactly what allocation he had to everyone,
Mm-hmm.
but they're big numbers, and it kind of did really remind me of your team, because I was looking at his keepers. His starters are pretty much already set by what I think his keepers could be. A bunch. Josh Allen, obviously, bunch of running backs, a bunch of wide receivers, and even a tight end
Yeah.
already in the fold.
Yeah.
It'll really be interesting because we saw how it turned out with you last year, but I don't think that was really necessarily dependent on you know your plan having a huge flaw in it. Just a lot of guys regressed at the wrong time, and maybe that'll be the same thing that crashes this team. Maybe that is something that happens when you have a lot of guys coming off really good years and the high salaries for some of the high end keepers that you didn't get super cheap. So like they had that talent. Like so, there
Yeah.
there is some downside when one of the guys regresses. Another guy gets hurt. Another guy gets hurt. And then like a bunch of your other stuff like doesn't work out early in the season. That's kind of what happened with you. I could see that kind of happening here. Um, but yeah, I mean, it should be really interesting. I don't think Josh Allen will see any regression this year, but at the same time, I didn't think Lamar Jackson was going to see regression last year. And then you had your running backs, he has his running backs, wide receivers. Like, it had some downside if things go poorly, which it doesn't seem to be saying a lot. But when things go poorly for guys that are making a lot of money, it cripples you. Whereas things go poorly for someone that keeps like a $13, Debo Samuels. That's not going to cripple you. You just kind of wasted a spot on it, but whatever, right? Like,
Right. You move on.
yeah.
Totally.
So it really interesting to see if that is indeed what his keeper set looks like, and if true, his auction draft is going to be really interesting too, because you found it very interesting or challenging to go in with so little money. Like the first portion of the draft, you're just like, okay, I can't participate in any of this, and I think it's kind of hard to stay like in the flow of draft while the first chunk of it is kind of going by, and you can't really do anything. Like, I mean, you kind of could, but like you would just be left with like $10 for like 8 spots or something, which isn't realistic either. So yeah, I really interested to see if it does play out similarly, or if he learned any lessons from how it played out with New England last year. Like, I do think this is one of the teams that we could see come back to the playoffs or drop off really big.
Yeah. I don't. Yeah, it's hard to say. I think a little bit of what also happened to my team was injuries, and that could happen as well too, right? But
Yeah.
just because it seems like it's a luck thing, but it could also have been that those big years were because they weren't injured, and I think that was the case for some of
them.
the players on my team for 2019, and so that could play a part for sure. I do think someone like Jonathan Taylor will potentially be above all of that and really carry this team, and maybe Austin Eckler. I'm not sure if Eckler is being kept or not, but even though I think that, I think back and I had the same kind of situation with Josh Jacobs as well. I was like thinking, Josh Jacobs, he can carry my team, right? No, it was very hard. I mean, I know Josh Jacobs played well for a number of games, but it's still difficult in our league to score the requisite amount to actually get the victory when you've got like 2 extra flexes and all of the starting roster spots that you need to actually field a great lineup week in and week out. So yeah, I'm interested to see how Oakland will do this season.
Because if it happens twice with a similar strategy, you have to think, oh, maybe it's a trend. Maybe there's inherently something wrong in going into an auction with so much of your money settled and your position settled. It seems really good on paper, like it did for you last year.
Right.
You're like, oh, I've so few starting positions that I'm really trying to challenge for, so it should be fine. But it didn't turn out well, and we'll kind of see. I think if it's a trend, if there's something inherently a little bit problematic about doing that, or maybe it was just a one-off. Or you do get hit by a lot of bad luck. I don't think anyone will dispute that. So maybe we'll see that it wasn't the strategy. It was just it just happens sometimes. One of those off years.
Yeah, and even if it does repeat, it's still a N of 2. So
wonky. We're the media. We don't concern ourselves with sample size. Sample size of 1 is enough.
Look, sorry,
frankly,
I'm a scientist, all right? Look, I think about sample sizes all the time.
Fair.
Yeah, Capital Region. It kind of reminds me of the Coors Light, the cold as the Rockies, kind of. But yeah, do you want to explain a little bit on your thought process with their logo?
Yeah, this was pretty simple. I asked him for what he wanted to associate with his team, and he said pretty much like mountains of some sort. Like
cool.
he does he does live in like a rural area, and I know he's big about I think he's really into rock climbing and stuff, right?
Oh
I
yeah, yeah, yeah,
believe.
yeah.
Yeah, so it does align with his interests. And I asked for him for his color scheme. It does look a little bit like a beer commercial now that you say it. But I do like that it was one of the few logos that I was able to go with like a hexagon
Yeah,
shape.
yeah.
Um and it does look really clean. Like it has like
It's clean.
very not a lot going on other than words, like angles, like colors, like very, very like simple and clean. And I think it does show like that, their franchise is, a little bit no nonsense, not about the frills, not about like, all
Mm,
that extra stuff. It's just about fantasy football for them. So, I do think it does kind of look like a outdoors like equipment selling
oh
kind
yeah,
of
that's
a
true. It does. It does.
I feel like they're trying to sell me some like mountain climbing gear or something, which I
Yeah.
guess kind of
Jay,
works. But
Jay says
it
it's a
is
gym
clean
badge.
though. It is good. Yeah, yeah. It is a gym badge. It is a gym badge. You beat Capital Region, you get this gym badge, which honestly would look pretty well. Look pretty clean as a
Yeah, I think it looks great. I think it looks
yeah.
great, honestly. Um, yeah, Capital Region, they came away with the third overall finish. A little bit disappointing, even though third is great, but yeah, you kind of don't want to be third. Uh, it just sucks to be in that position yet again for this team, right? I think this team has a history of finishing third, but in any case, Mahomes has been just the franchise player for a while now. They'll be under contract until the 2022 season, and so we'll see Mahomes there playing for them for quite a long time. I think what's an interesting choice for Capital Region is the franchise tag between Dalvin Cook and Alvin Kamara. I think one of them will get it, one of them will not, and we have no idea which one will be that lucky selected player. I think Stefan Diggs is likely to get a keeper contract here, but other than that, I'm kind of surprised at the lack of keepers here, and maybe it's because of some of the trades that they've made in the prior season to load up for that playoff push. It fell short, but you're going to have to deal with the consequences now as you look into the new year. And maybe you can do Miles Sanders. Robbie Anderson actually as well. So yeah, who else do you see, and what do you think about those players, Dustin?
Yeah, I mean they definitely emptied a good amount of their clip trying to go for it last year, which they were the best team for most of the regular season, I thought. So,
Yep.
I thought that was pretty warranted to do. Unfortunately, it did not come close to what they were expecting to get. Like you said, a third place finish really sucks when you think you're probably the strongest team on paper, at least for most of the year. And as a result, yeah, they are a little bit lighter in keepers. Obviously, Mahomes can be extended. It
Whew.
you can just add another year and then like fill out the rest.
Sure.
But like you said, I think not Preston Williams, Robbie Anderson is worthy of a deal. Miles Sanders probably for 1 year. Um,
Yeah.
I would
Maybe
probably do.
like 30. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And then,
33.
Mahomes can always fill the rest, or maybe just look around for trades of some lower guys that you want to keep adding on and, try to make another push this year. I do think the Kamara Cook decision will be the most interesting one for
It's
them
huge.
this year.
Yeah.
Obviously, both guys are really good. One guy he has a history with, Alvin Kamara.
Right.
Drafted him since his rookie year.
Right.
So if it's close, I imagine they'll go with Alvin Kamara. If around the keeper deadline it doesn't, no injuries have happened, nothing, shocking has happened, I kind of see them going with Alvin Kamara because it's hard not to get attached to guys in this league, especially because especially guys that you draft in the rookie draft. Um, but yeah, it'll be really interesting. It's always possible that an injury happens during preseason, and it's not a decision at all. So it's not a bad thing to have two choices.
Yeah.
I yeah, yeah. I do think that one more guy. I feel like if they could, trade for one using something, like you said, it's tough because the assets you have available to trade are always tough. But this is the team that traded every future pick and everything for Mahomes
Mm,
in the first place. So
mm.
if someone is dangling something that they think is worth it for their team, I imagine they'll be willing to part with future picks, this year's pick, whatever, to get that. But barring that, yeah, I would probably just give Mahomes another year, and then Sanders, Diggs, Robbie Anderson can somewhat fill out the rest. But yeah, I mean, just by having, I think, one of the franchise tagging running backs that he has, Mahomes and the rest of those keepers are good enough to make him another big threat this year.
Yeah. Are they still called the Kamara Sutra?
Uh, I mean, they haven't named their team for this year, but they were last year. Yeah,
All
they've
right.
named
Yeah.
their team the Kamara Sutra every year that I was really glad that he didn't ask me to make a logo with that that horrendous
uh,
Kamara
Sutra.
Sutra.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't know how to. But luckily, he asked for something really clean. I think it
Yeah.
is really clean.
Yeah.
Goes with their no frills image. I think it works very well for them.
Yeah, and I think Kamara has never played for a different
No,
HFFL
yeah,
franchise.
he's
So,
on their team since rookie year. So that's why, yeah, that's why I think if it's close, if the decision is close at keeper deadline, I think I'll go with Kamara. But a lot of things can happen between now and then. Injuries on the offensive line. They trade for someone, they draft, or they, you know, yeah, trade for someone
right.
to
Right.
compete or sign someone. Like it's always fluid. So it's like way too early to say like one decision is correct over the other.
Of course. Of course. Although I'm sure people will have fun looking at this decision and just pointing at, oh, hey, look, you chose this over that. And, would have been this, would have been that, which, of
Hmm.
course, in hindsight is way easier. So let's move on to great kills. And this is your classic Sky Elephants, right? You've got, it's pretty much very similar to that logo that we've seen and have
Yeah,
grown to be
I've had it.
familiar with, right? Yeah.
Hmm.
It's got some
Yeah,
changes though, a little bit.
it's got some subtle changes. I did change around. I did like smooth out the edges to make it look a lot sharper.
Mm.
I did change the white to like a little bit. It's hard to tell here, but
Oh
it's a
yeah,
little bit
no,
more
it
like
does.
a
Yeah,
elephant beige, like
yeah,
tusk kind of color.
like the ivory type.
Very, yeah, exactly. Very, very small details, but like I had come to kind of this version of this logo. I think almost 2 years ago, maybe a little bit less than 2 years ago. So it's something that I've you know been rocking for a
Mm-hmm.
while. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to surprise anyone. It's an elephant, got wings, so it's a sky elephant, obviously. Um, the three stars on the wings are the three championships that we've won.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's got some touches to it, but also I did a gradient the background so that it fades from like light blue to darker blue. But otherwise,
Ah.
yeah. I mean, yeah, everyone's seen this one. Everyone's I've been rocking it for a while, so it was like a minor touch up more than any huge redesign. And it is what it is. Like I think it's been identity for this franchise for a pretty long time now. So I'm really proud that this is what people don't think of just like, oh, Dustin's team or great kills or whatever. I think they think of this team as like a whole, which is why I felt comfortable walking away from like actually managing it, because I think this is still the team that it's my team in a way always, so I felt comfortable just walking away and like letting it do what it does over the next few years.
Yeah. I'm curious. When I think of sky elephants, I kind of think of the Dumbo type of, with the wings with as the ears,
Hmm.
kind of
Hmm.
kind of deal. Like, did you ever think of that, or did you always have those like, um, kind of like bat wings almost on your elephant,
I
right?
think, yeah, I think an early version. I mean, I didn't really have anything in mind when I went Sky Elephants. I just it was pretty much on a whim. I like the teams that would like have an adjective before the animal. Like
Ah.
like sky socks or like land sharks or some
Oh,
descriptor
interesting.
descriptor
Okay.
plus animal is something that I've always liked. I think they're like teams in like the minor leagues in Japan that have that kind of like naming convention, and I always like
Mm.
thought those are like pretty funny. And then sky elephants, I came up with without thinking of Dumbo, but then pretty soon after I was like, oh, I guess Dumbo is the original, sky elephant.
Yeah, yeah, he is.
Yeah, yeah.
The
But yeah,
OG.
so Dumbo wasn't what I was thinking of, but I don't mind the comparisons. Um, but yeah, the bat wings is just as fine.
Yeah,
As long as the elephant is in the sky,
it
it's what
counts. Yeah.
yeah, it's what counts.
And Warren saying Grundle monkeys is kind of in the same
Yeah,
vein of
yeah. I
adjective
like I
animal.
like adjective descriptor plus animal.
Descriptor, right, right.
It's a good formula.
Yep. Yeah, so Great Kills, they've got Baker under contract
Hmm.
for 2021, and then Damian
Yeah.
Williams, 13 and 17. And this is back with some, forget the exact details, but with some COVID
Yep.
related
He
miss.
sat out last year, so
Yeah.
we just uh shoved the contract a year, but he's probably gonna be a cut this year.
Yeah,
I mean, I would imagine, yeah.
yeah, we'll see. I see you're still using Wii, so it's hard to to associate.
I mean,
But anyways,
it's my team,
yeah, yeah,
so.
yeah. I think that the real big standouts for the keepers, at least to me, are the Antonio Gibson as well as James Robinson pair. And it's not been the smoothest offseason for the two of them. I think Gibson has obviously been a pretty good one, but then with Robinson, it's been a little bit strange
Hmm.
rookie running back being drafted
Hmm.
early in the 2021 draft, and so quite interesting to see who gets kept there. And then on top of that, there's also Miles Gaskin who survived in Miami. I think a lot of people were mocking a running back going there, but no, it's instead to Jacksonville. Uh,
Hmm.
and then a couple of wide receivers. I don't think. Well, I'm not sure. Maybe Deontay Johnson could get a contract, and maybe even Devontae Parker. Mims maybe less so, but that's kind of my perspective coloring that. I want to hear what you think of your prior team's keepers.
Yeah, I mean, I think Antonio Gibson is the centerpiece of this team for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A high second round pick, like we've mentioned before.
Right, right.
So that $2 salary really goes a long way. There, even if he does not make the next step, it's still a really good value on that. And if he does, then you have a blue chip keeper to work with. Yeah, agree that the offseason for James Robinson didn't go too well with Etienne getting drafted. I imagine though it'll be I think they'll just stick with Baker. Um, I probably think Robinson, Gibson, and Gaskin probably
Probably.
probably get kept. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, still just because the running back market is so competitive that it's hard to just pass up guys that are guaranteed to at least have somewhat of a role. And obviously Robinson's not going to have maybe as big a role as last year, but we've seen two-headed running back situations still be worth it for $7. He'll be $16, like still worth it easily at that price. So this team has a lot of running back keeper value. I wonder if there's some trades being talked around that because of that strength in running back.
Right, right.
Yeah, I mean Deontay Johnson I think could be kept. I actually think Aaron Rodgers could be kept too. Um,
Presumably, yeah.
he's
That's like about
yeah 34, maybe
50,
like
maybe 45.
50.
Yeah,
Yeah,
around there.
no, it'd be like low 50s. Like coming off MVP
Mm-hmm.
season, probably worth it. So it's really weird. They have a lot of running backs, and then I mean their roster is like very very shrunken down. Like it's like less than any other team so far. So they don't have a ton of options. I do wonder if there are some trades about to be made. I have talked with Matt, so I kind of do know like what he's been thinking, and
As a
I do
consultant.
know that
Yeah, yeah,
he's
yeah.
he has been like talking. I think some trades with some of the running backs, but I just don't really know. I don't know what I would do here actually. Now that I look at it, there is like four names that I think could be kept at running back, but going into the draft with four running backs kept is
Awkward.
really, yeah, really awkward, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I imagine they'll try to swing something for a wide receiver, maybe a tight end if they
Can
find
find it.
one
Yeah,
that they're
yeah.
liking.
Yep.
It's really weird. I actually haven't really looked at this roster this year, like in a analytical way. So I'm actually surprised that it looks like this, and I do think there needs to be probably some trades out from here.
Did you guys
Yeah.
trade? I forget last season. Did you guys trade away keepers for the playoff push? I forget.
We did. I think I traded T Higgins. That was
Ah,
part of
right,
it.
right. Devontae Adams.
Traded
Yep.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
Mm, mm,
Who I think is still probably going to be kept this year.
absolutely.
So two guys, and then yeah, not much else, but like.
No, that
But
makes
yeah,
sense. Yeah.
running back seems to be still very plentiful on this team, even if there's no like Gibson is probably the closest to a blue chip, and then they have three guys that I think can be kept, but are kind of in that next tier, tier of like, oh yeah, running backs are kind of expensive, so I would keep this guy. So it's interesting to see. I mean, I don't know what you would do with three types of those guys, so it'll be interesting to see if they trade one out, and that's probably what I would do if I were running this team.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's been a trend with some of these playoff teams, the lack of keepers, which kind of makes sense as they've been trading those players away, getting those pieces to get into the playoffs, and then hopefully win the championship, right? And that's kind of where this last team is a little bit different because I think they've got one of the best keeper groups coming into the season. Their logo. Wait, what happened with their logo?
What do you mean? What happened with their logo?
This is their logo. That's it. Isn't this what they already? This feels
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I thought it was fine. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
It is
Never mind.
it is their. It's hard to make something with, pause with attitude.
Yeah, that's true.
And
That's
like
a good
everything
point.
is circular.
Sorry. Yeah.
So
That's true.
I only really touched it a little bit. It pretty much is exactly what they had or what I made for them last year. And that was
Right.
really yeah. That was really the start of the genesis of like, oh shit, like what if I make a logo for like, or what if we have logos for every team?
Right.
So this is like honestly like the first one made other than, obviously my own team's logo. It is the black and white is like the explicit content
Yes.
kind of pattern, and then the HWA is the same exact font that the NWA I think their Straight Outta Compton CD was. So it is pretty much what it is.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it feels like it's a label.
It does kind of feel like a label.
So that's
Yeah,
why I
I
was a
guess that
little
is.
confused.
Yeah.
But if
Yeah,
Paul
no,
likes it,
I'm will if there are some ideas like, to turn this into like more of a logo looking thing, I would, gladly be open. But, at the same time, it kind of is what it is. It's just kind of, yeah, it is kind of simplistic for a logo relative to, I guess, what a lot of the other ones got. But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that's why it's a work in progress, everything.
yeah. I mean, I feel like it's one of the ones that doesn't elicit the team kind of like flavor, right? I'm not entirely sure though. I could be wrong. It could be just me only, and that's completely fine. And maybe I'm, yeah, I don't know. People can start reacting to that to that on the Discord. But in any case, I think some of the names here have changed because they obviously acquired T Higgins just a moment ago. And I think they have one of the best keeper groups as they come into the season. They've got already Kenny Galladay signed for this season, as well as George Kittle. But then it's really Justin Herbert at $10. So cheap for Virginia. Drew Lock is under contract as well, but likely will get cut, I'd imagine. And then there is another QB, Joe Burrow, and that kind of made Dak expendable, right? With Joe Burrow being at $12, and he of course joins his real life teammate T Higgins on this roster with potentially to be kept. I'd imagine that Hua is keeping someone who he just traded for. And then on top of that, we talked about those second round players. If you hit, you're going to get something huge, and that's Brandon Ayuk here at $2. So I think they've got a really solid core. I think, I didn't even get to DeAndre Swift, Ronald Jones, right? And if Dak is being kept and not tagged, then you can even think about tagging Derrick Henry for this season. So a lot of returning names. I think it's going to be one of the strongest rosters, and that's really scary because this was the team that actually won the championship last year, and yet they returned quite a lot of faces as well as really great keepers for this year.
Yeah, I know. I think this team is going to win it all again this year. They're on another level right now with how thorough they are in monitoring trade lines and stuff. They get to all the good trades first. Like I said, like Dak Prescott here, he's 25, so he'd be 42 to keep in next year. So I don't think he lost a lot, and he picked up T Higgins, who on the other hand is $2, right? So I would probably not keep Dak at all and keep T if I had the choice. And then, I guess David Montgomery has value too, but he's 20. So that would mean he's 33 on a 1-year deal.
Yes.
How much is David Montgomery going for in auction draft? I struggle to think it's way more than that.
Mm-hmm.
And Virginia got a potential second round pick if it's the first or second pick of the second round, which shows how in tune they are with what has value in this league. To get I think the best keeper of the group, while dumping one guy that I don't think has a ton of keeper value, and one guy just because he's a running back I think should be kept, and also getting potentially 2-2 next year or 2-1. Like this trade could look disastrous next year, and I think it just shows how strong this team is in the trade market. They always seem to find the best values. They have a really good idea of what has value in our league, at what salary. I think a lot of teams are struggling with the new keeper system and everything. They're struggling with what has value to them the same way that it used to. The old system definitely had different nuances that made other things more valuable, but I think Virginia has transitioned marvelously to the new system, and they really get what has value in this new era. And I think I'm don't feel I feel good that I got out, because I think he's gonna be reigning on top for quite a while until the curve catches up to him. And I think that's gonna be the case for a while. So I definitely think this team, at the minimum, I would see them in the Hunter Bowl, and I think they're my favorite to win it all again next year.
Ooh, at the minimum. Wow, that's crazy. I mean, yeah, I think
look. I wouldn't be surprised if he found a way to trade Drew Lock to somebody that thinks Drew Lock is somehow good. He always has the best trade in line, because he's always talking to 9 different owners at the same time. I've talked to other people, and they've always talked about how Hua is always in touch with them, and I think people kind of underestimate that information more. He has a better sense of what everyone is valuing than a lot of people, and some people just don't want to put in that work. But Virginia obviously is fine with putting in that work, and I think he's getting everything he deserves. He's gonna be the best team, I think, for the future.
Yeah, I think there's no question that he's really adjusted well to this new system, and he's
I see a lot of teams. I was talking to a lot of team owners, and their brain, you can definitely tell, is definitely stuck in the old system, where certain I don't want to go into a whole explanation, but certain things definitely had more value in the old system than they do now.
Yes.
And Virginia, they are on top of everything. I saw it firsthand last year as an owner. I was in awe of how different it is negotiating with them in trades than anyone else, because other teams are a lot less sure about exactly what their target is, and what kind of ideas they have. But Virginia, I could always tell had multiple steps to build the team that they had in their head. So
yeah. It's admirable, it's commendable, and yeah, it's quite scary So I mean, it makes sense, right? It just is. A lot of people were probably used to what had happened for many many years, but I think
Yeah, I mean, just look at what they negotiated for in this most recent trade. They negotiated for a second round pick if it's 2-1 or 2-2, and he clearly has like a good sense of like, okay, those values are extremely high. Like those are guys that could have obviously gone in the first round, but could have fallen out, and then you get them for $2. That's I think something that the savvy teams have caught on to, but maybe not every team realizes yet. But I think Virginia was on top of that ages ago, and you can tell by what they ask for in trades that they're squeezing out every ounce of value in this new system. So I think other teams will obviously catch onto the curve, and it'll obviously be a more level playing field soon. But I think the next 2 or 3 years, I think Virginia is really well set up to set up some sort of dynasty.
yeah, well, I think just to comment on the trade that if I'm understanding this correctly, that Harlem is asking for a second round pick in return if it is the 201 or 202. So
So do they get the second round pick regardless?
regardless, yes. So it
Okay.
doesn't matter. That's what I believe. That's my
Hmm.
understanding. I'm obviously not completely clear on it. It's been only a couple hours since the trade has gone through. The other part of this, and I think it's maybe I talked about it before, maybe we talked about it before, but the act of buying and selling is not enough alone to put you over the edge, right? I think we saw that clearly last year, where the team that sold won the championship. Just think about that, right? The team that sold won the championship. That, to me, shows that it's not about buying, just strictly buying or strictly selling, right? You have to be able to get enough in return. And I think that was
Hmm.
a huge moment. And I hope people have learned this by now, that you can't just buy for the sake of buying. You have to buy and make sure your team has actually gotten better at the end of it. I remember being, a little annoyed that the buying teams weren't asking for maybe potentially more, because I know of the value there is of preparing your team for the future, and it gets overlooked. I think sometimes the narratives go a little bit crazy, but I'm always on the side of thinking about the future. And what's so different about our league is that a lot of these keepers have inherent value for the year that they're being traded in. Like, they actually produce. It's not like we're trading prospects or things
Yep.
like that. And
Yep.
so it's a dangerous game. It's a dangerous game, and I think a lot of
Yeah.
people
No.
were on
I
the wrong end of it last year.
I think yeah. I think that delineation is exactly what Virginia took advantage of. They
Absolutely.
they made trades that seem like selling, but
Mm-mm.
in if you look back at it, it actually they moved around enough like of their strength where it actually improved their team each time as they were selling, which is the ideal trade. You get what you want for the future, and you just move around a little bit of talent. You sacrifice a little bit of talent you don't need here to put it in a place where you need it. And yeah, they definitely we saw some really really good trades last year. I think last year from Virginia, and I agree with you. That's probably the biggest place where they're ahead of the curve, and I think a lot of teams are having trouble with negotiating in trades with the new
Mm.
keeper system. There
Mm.
being 7 slots, the keeper raises being bigger. It's a huge change in how to calculate the values of everything. And like you said, they were underestimating the value of the current year. They if they're giving away some future pieces, they should it should have hurt a lot more in the current year, but it didn't. It was like, yeah, slight downgrade this year, but for Virginia it wasn't, because they had a good series of trades that like kind of like up and down like different positions to make them all kind of like level out like the same, while picking up a ton of future value. I mean, they picked up Justin Herbert,
It's crazy.
Swift.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Galladay.
yeah,
Yeah.
Galladay, like just so much of their you know assets that we're jealous of, going into the future year. They got in trades while they were, giving up slight level of talent, and like nobody else was doing that kind of trade, which, I just think, yeah, they're just so far out of the curve right now.
Yeah, it's crazy, and my only thought is as we go through this era of dominance from Virginia, are we going to hear more complaints on the on the Discord? Are we going to talk about all of the negative stuff? But yeah.
I don't know. I think Virginia does good in kind of making themselves. They kind of go under the radar by like not being the villain, by kind of throwing in the Huangris every now and then, throwing in the woe is me. And I think teams aren't treating Virginia like the threat that I think they should be considering it, because yeah, I think they kind of they kind of buy into his his miserable, like, I don't have fun playing fantasy football, this is all just work, blah blah blah. Like, I think they buy into that, and then like they kind of overlook what kind of shark he is in trades. I think teams should probably be a little bit more wary when they're dealing with Virginia.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even I could tell as we're talking about this that Virginia is overlooked. Looking at the viewer counts, it's at the lowest right now. The peak was at Great Kills. I mean, this.
Yeah. Everyone signed out. Everyone doesn't want to hear. Yeah.
I mean, this is clear. It's just clear, but yeah, it's overlooked, and it's interesting. It's gonna be obviously a new year without you, and maybe Hua fills that void. And
yeah, no, that's so. I don't know if I said this specifically when I said I was retiring, but part of the reason I retired was I felt comfortable knowing that Hua is grinding as hard as I used to. He's caring about the league as hard as I used to, and I think he will eventually become that villain for this league. I think he will be that guy that everyone grumbles about how he's always doing well, and how like Harlem complains a lot about me, but in time I think Virginia will show enough dominance where he'll be the new the new flag bearer for the league. So that's part of why I felt comfortable not having to be that guy anymore. I don't need to do it anymore, because I think Virginia is like how I used to run my team, except with several upgrades in certain areas. So
yeah.
I this is all a compliment to.
Oh yeah,
to
yeah,
Hawk.
yeah, yeah.
He is truly very, very good at fantasy football
Oh,
now. Like,
absolutely. Oh,
he has
now.
shed all
Oh
the
God.
things. Well, I mean, there were things that were holding him back in the past, and I
Yeah, sure, sure.
I think he will also agree. But now I think he's a level above everyone now.
He's embraced who he is. I think that's always beautiful. I've said that last year. I'm saying it again. I think when you realize where your strengths and weaknesses are as a person, as a player, then you can really play to that strategy and then obviously win. And so I really enjoyed seeing that, and I think we're going to see a lot of that as we move forward. And again, I would encourage everyone else to do that, and I need to do that as well for my own,
Yeah, it's gonna
strategy.
take a
So
while. It always takes a while.
yes,
These new rule changes, like,
yes.
nobody was thinking of franchise tags the way Hua was. So Hua set it up so that he has Derrick Henry to tag this year, which is going to be value on what he would make in an auction. So he basically has 8 keepers. He has an extra 3-1, which I don't think is as important as like a 2-1, but a 3-1 pick I think is also, you get a little bit of a drop off from in terms of salary, and you get your first of the pick of that round. And he just made a great trade, I think. I know you disagree, but I really do think he made out really well in getting, like I said, a wide receiver that value doesn't fluctuate as much for cheap, $2. So, like, he has a long runway in front of him.
Sure.
He'll be able to be traded multiple times for value.
Good
Dak
point.
Prescott not going to be traded midseason for keeper value. You're not going to be like, oh, you can keep Dak next year. Same for David Montgomery. You're not going to be like, oh, you can keep David Montgomery next year, because next year he'd be $60 or
50
$50.
something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a lot of value that I'm not sure that every team is also factoring in, while Virginia is like saying, okay, even if Dak and Montgomery are more valuable this year, the long runway that I get with T Higgins at $2, it outweighs it by a lot, and he got a pick. So I think
That's
people
fair.
people have to catch up quickly. People have to catch up quickly.
That's fair. Well, I think there's been a little bit of discussion about that second round pick. I don't know exactly what's going on. It's always fun to see Hua and Diaz in these trades, and I would love to see a Hua versus Diaz in the finals. I think that's kind of
Yeah, I
where we're
mean the
pumping
good the
right now,
good thing
right?
for the good thing for Diaz is the owner of the first pick in the rookie draft has made the Hunter Bowl, I think, like 5 years now straight. Because I continued it last year by making the Hunter Bowl um, after having the first pick, and I believe Jay Yonkers made
Made
it.
it, yeah,
It goes back at least 4 years. So
yeah,
no pressure, but it does look like there is a pattern there. So we'll
yeah.
see if it continues.
Yeah, I'm super excited. Super excited for Tuesday, I believe, August 3rd. I forget what time, but it's sometime in the evening. We'll probably be back on, and we'll hopefully do something similar to what we did last year, I think,
Hmm.
where we'll do the show and grab people as they come available and have people talk about their picks. I thought that was a great time. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think John refused to come on, but I think that will happen maybe again. We'll see. Yeah, I think great show, and we'll see you guys very soon.
Yeah, if anyone does have, I know there was some feedback, but
Oh
I'm
yeah,
very,
yeah,
very open to feedback
yeah.
on all the logos. So, you can message me privately if you want something done to your logo. It's definitely, I don't want to lock any of these in until pretty much the beginning of this season, and then we'll run with that for a while. But up until then, you see an idea, you see a font that you like, you see shape that you like, whatever, tell me, and I'll try to do my best. So hopefully, yeah, when these are all finished, it'll be a really cool thing.
Yeah, I think they look fantastic. So thank you again, Dustin, for making these, as well as other people who are involved, and maybe even making their logos. I think it's they all look really good. So super excited. And yeah, if you don't have anything else, Dustin, I
Nope,
think we're good.
really good show. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you guys. Peace.